everybody. This is Pastor Steve. We are here with the Mad Hatter, Adam Rastetter.
What's up, every guy? Everybody, every guy out there. What's up?
We're gonna be
gals.
We're gonna be thrown way off today because we're actually recording this in the morning. So good morning. We mean that this time. And we got Noah, the barefoot dude, over here to my left.
What's up?
What's up? And we have coffee, and it's morning time when we usually drink coffee.
Yeah.
Ooh, take a sip. You won't let it go.
Yeah, wow.
It is kind of satisfying, though, sometimes.
Yes.
Depending on your threshold of tolerance for weird noises. Like your mom probably hates that.
Oh, she absolutely does.
Oh, no.
She can't handle
Lisa
that.
probably hates it, too. Her and your mom both. The same coffee that we had last week, so I didn't give a little intro to that. This is the narrative coffee. This is one that I got from Jacob, who he got from his girlfriend Devin, who got it from a roaster in Florida. It's really good stuff, Colombian, very good coffee. We have a listener question today, and I've been waiting for a question like this. I'm surprised. I honestly am pretty surprised we haven't gotten something like this earlier. This question is from one of our members at Water's Edge. And it says, how do dinosaurs and cavemen fit into the Christian view of creation described in Genesis? Boom. So we're dealing with dinosaurs, we're dealing with cavemen, and we're dealing with the Genesis account of creation, biblical teaching on creation. Where do you guys go?
Want me to start?
Go for it.
Yeah, I've always believed that dinosaurs were created on the sixth day. I believe that with the other land animals, they were created, and I would say they were plant eaters. I would say in the garden, there was not, according to Genesis 1, they weren't eating meat at that time. That nobody ate meat until after the flood. So I'd say then, I think dinosaurs are not as old as maybe some may say. But I think they're real. I think they existed. I think we find them in the Bible. Job 40.
The behemoth.
40, 41, 40, 41, something like that. Is it Job 40?
41.
41.
Is the majority of the text. There are like a couple of other references.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We can come. We'll come back to that, but that's kind of that's a traditional young Earth creation view.
Yeah.
And so as we talk about this stuff, because we don't all agree on this, very sympathetic personally to that view, but that is a view that's represented the young Earth creationism by guys like Ken Ham. That's probably the most famous, I think, with Answers in Genesis. His ministry. They're out in Kentucky. They got the Creation Museum. They built the life-size Noah's Ark. Have you guys seen that? Yeah. It's pretty wild. Yeah. But they would be probably the leading, I think, voices now in our day of the young Earth creation view. Tell us a little bit about your journey with views on this. I know you've kind of been unsettled, I think.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I love this question because so many people are afraid to ask it. It's such a feared discussion point for Christians because they feel that they have to take an opposition to pretty much every single one of the world's opinions on the happening of creation. And so I grew up under the influence of Answers in Genesis. And so I grew up understanding that, the young Earth view was the one that needed to be held in order to maintain inerrancy and authority of the Bible. I still believe the Bible is the main authority, and it doesn't have any mistakes, and it was completely inspired by God. But my views on the creation account and like how dinosaurs fit in, how cavemen fit in, has fluctuated a ton. I still don't know where I stand. Like, I haven't devoted my life to studying the Bible as a profession. Like, I haven't been to seminary or anything. And yeah, it's really interesting to study. And it can get like really consuming, like thought-wise, for sure.
Yeah, I think you make a great point, is that, as Christians, we hold to the authority of the inerrancy of the Scripture as our ultimate authority. But you hinted at something there that I think was pretty revelatory for me. This topic, this question kind of honestly became a little bit of a crisis for me very early on in my faith. Not in a doubting of God, but just in oh man, I hadn't thought about these things when I was a non-believer. Mm-hmm. You know, I'd been taught a certain way about the world and its origins, et cetera. And I remember being in advanced individual training, AIT, as an enlisted soldier. And I was known as a Christian, because I was a new believer on fire for the Lord, and it definitely stood out. You know, my life stood out among my peers. Mm-hmm. And there was one guy, I remember he was from California, a super liberal guy, ex-bodybuilder, stripper.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah, and he came up to me one day, and we were cool, because I was the platoon leader, and he was in a leadership role, and so we were cool. But he was like, "Hey, tell me something. Tell me about the dinosaurs. Where are the dinosaurs at in the Bible?" And I was just like, I never thought about it. I mean, I was hadn't been a Christian, not even 6 months yet at this point. Mm-hmm. I mean, this is very early on in my belief. And I was having this moment of crisis, praying about it at night. And I had no resources available to me there. I'm caged in by the Army, and I don't have much. And so I just, for a long time, became a pretty ardent student of these things, just apologetics in general. What are the objections that the world has to the Bible? What are these things? And this is certainly one of them when it comes to the creation account. But what you hinted at is, does the Bible leave open the possibility that the earth is actually older? Because in the Young Earth view, you would say the earth is roughly 6,000 to 10,000 years old. If you're generous on the genealogies, Absolutely. You can extend that out a little longer.
Yeah, from Adam to now.
You believe thousands of years, not millions or billions. Yeah. And so the question is, does the Bible, being authoritative, leave open that possibility? Specifically, when we get to Genesis and our interpretation of Genesis 1, that those days are either poetic, as some would take the view, that's called the framework theory, if you're familiar with that, or are those not literal days? And to be quite honest, the Hebrew word that's translated day, yom, can be translated a period of time, referring to an epoch or an era, not just a 24 literal hour day. Now, there's qualifiers on there that present that challenge, but it does open that possibility. And this is one of the things that I think we fail to understand as 21st century Americans, English-speaking people, is that in our language, we have roughly, I think, 4 million words, something like that, in the English language. Well, in Hebrew, they didn't have millions of words. They had thousands of words, and they only had 3,000 words if you take away the millions of names. If you take away the names and you take away the cities, those kind of pronouns, or those proper nouns, then you're left with about 3,000 words in biblical Hebrew. Right. And so the Hebrew word yom can be translated a 24-hour period. It can be translated a 12-hour period. It can refer to a period of time. And in fact, in Genesis 1 and 2, you see it used multiple ways. Because when you get to Genesis 2, verse 4, you see them referring to the generations. Read Genesis 2:4 for me.
These are the generations of the heavens and the earth when they were created in the day that the Lord God made the earth and the heavens.
So it's just finishes Genesis 1, where it listed 7 days of creation. Mm-hmm. But there the word is used to refer to all of the creation in the day that the Lord created. And if you think about it, in English, we still use it that way today. If I say back in the day, mm-hmm. I'm not talking about September 15th, 1970, Mm-hmm. I'm talking about a period of time back in the day. Mm-hmm. Or, in the day when Roger Staubach was quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys.
Hail Mary.
Hail Mary. Yeah, we were talking about that there. But you use it to refer to a period of time, not just that. And Genesis does that. And so the Hebrew allows it. Can that then open up the possibility? Well, if you take that view, which is actually the view that I'm more sympathetic and more lean towards, that the earth is older, then you have to account for, well, if the scientific data that says dinosaurs, specifically, since that's the question, I mean, there's other things that come up, but, common understanding in science today is that dinosaurs lived came on Earth about 230 million years ago, were extinct about 65 million years ago. So you got about 170 million years there in which, the fossil record presents dinosaurs as appearing in 3 different stages. And this is what's taught in the science books. You have the Triassic stage, lasted about 50 million years. Then you have Jurassic, and then you have the Cretaceous, right? And we joke about like the Jurassic Park because they have the T-Rex.
Oh, it's one of my biggest. He's not from the Jurassic period. Yeah, it drives me nuts.
And so anyway, well, that's the common understanding. So, but if the Bible allows the Earth is older, then there's some other theological implications that you have to think through. And if you're going to be a person that holds to inerrancy, you have to give serious thought to what are the implications for this for the atonement. What are the because that's one of the critiques of the blood of Christ. Because if there's death before Adam's sin and the fall of humanity, then how do we account for that? And that's a question that comes up often, which I think the Bible addresses. Do you want to say anything about that before I?
No, keep going.
Okay, so and that's just the common understanding is that when Adam sinned and Eve sinned, that there was no death prior to that. Mm-hmm. But yet the Bible never actually says that. What it says in Romans 5:12 is that Adam's sin brought death that spread to all men, and it's specifically qualified as death through sin, and it's spread to all men. And Adam didn't die in the day that he sinned. Mm-hmm. He died much later.
100 years later.
And in Romans 5, you see Paul using the term death multiple ways as well. Mm-hmm. He's talking about a spiritual death, and he talks about physical death. And so through Adam's sin, death spread to all men, all anthropologia. I can't think of the Greek, but it's where we get the word anthropology for men, all mankind. And so it is, I think, still the possibility is opened that Adam had a definite fall that affected all human beings for all time. We have a sinful nature that doesn't compromise the gospel. And yet, I believe that you can still hold that these days in Genesis referred to a epoch, a period of time, not a literal 24-hour day. So I would hold what seems to be consistent with modern findings, that the dinosaurs did live not with human beings, but well before human beings. What about cavemen, though? What do you guys think about this term cavemen? Have you thought much about that?
Yeah, I've already learned so much today. This is great. Yeah, I think it's important to define like cavemen. Like most people, when they hear cavemen, they think like the more Neanderthal like depicted, and that's based off of different like bone structure findings. But yeah, it's not necessarily talking about people that just live in caves, which we know happens.
Right.
We're talking about bipedal, like walking on 2 feet, primates.
Exactly.
That, I know you don't trust all the dating, but like appear to be much older than human beings, like 100,000 years versus, early 6 to 10, 15,000 years.
Sure. So I actually have a lot of questions about this because in the creation account, like the first human that God created wasn't stupid. Like he made a big mistake that kind of affected a lot of us. All of us. That was a joke. But he wasn't struggling to figure out a way to live and procreate and like develop a lineage. And his sons were inventors and like created instruments and tools and like. Yeah, I don't think the Bible in Genesis leaves a lot of room for these kind of like dumb human beings like struggling.
I mean, those Geico commercials, not the Geico commercials.
Yeah.
The one commercials.
This is the caveman.
The caveman commercials.
Oh, that was.
I can't think of who that was.
Insurance, right? Some kind of insurance.
Yeah. So what do you?
Well, yeah, I believe so. I think that when you think of cavemen, a lot of people are thinking, okay, we evolved maybe from these kind of ape-like creatures, and there were these stages where we became more and more like humans. So I reject that. I think that
The science actually rejects that. Like, as far as
at this point,
mitochondrial bacteria. Like, there's ways of that they've determined that these aren't actually. There's not a lot of confidence that those are ancestors or predecessors to human beings now.
Yeah. So no more Darwinian theory. Is that? Yeah. So anyway, okay. So what I think is if there are skeletons maybe that look somewhat different maybe than we are now, I think there's probably slight differences possibly. When you look at how long Adam lived and his sons, 900 years, it's possible that they had slightly different kind of skeletal structures, possibly. I don't know that for sure. That's my best.
Do you believe they were human beings, though?
I believe they were human beings. Okay. Yeah, Homo sapiens. The apes and chimpanzees were different species. God created only humans in His image, and so I would just say, that's my take on it.
I agree that God only made humans in His image for sure, and but I lean towards the fact that I think these bipedal primates, these hominids, Neanderthals, if you will, are actually a different type of animal, like some sort of more ape-like than actually human-like. And that's based on what we have learned about them, at least from the archaeological discoveries. People point to like, oh, they made tools and they started developing culture and that they buried their dead. That's not actually really supportive, at least in what I've read, that whatever tools they had were very extremely primitive, like in terms of like, I heard someone say one time, it's like if you take a rock and you bash it, you can get some sharp-edged rocks, and they use those to scrape like meat off bones and stuff, but not like any advanced tools at all. And even in terms of the way they like there was no cultivation of the land. They didn't have human like mental capacity, it appears, the kind of volition and the kind of intelligence that human beings have. Whereas when you get closer, and I know that's the issue of dating, but like when you get to where there's clear human being remains, much more culture, much more intelligence, all at once. So it's not this gradual, and this is an important thing to point out, I think, because we can easily get way off here and go all over the place. That's good stuff to talk about. A good thing to point out, I think, is that in an old Earth view, I still wouldn't hold to a macro evolution by no means. Like, and I think that I'm talking about like species becoming other types. Yeah. And I think that's really important to point out because absolutely. I don't hold that at all.
And I think because a lot of people tie those kind of things together, and I think that's a danger.
Yeah, but I think even scientifically, like that's a legitimate argument that that's not how life came to be. Like you see the fossil record doesn't support that. You see these massive development of not even development, you see massive complex life appear very quickly on the Earth. You don't see these stages of development that the Darwinian model predicted. Right? They thought as we find more and more that we would find these transitional beings. And that's not been the case, that we've actually seen that life appears very quickly and very complexly and doesn't have the time, if you will, or even the mechanism, biologically to create different types. So that's an important point when we talk about this stuff. So the view that I would hold, that I'm more favorable towards, is an old Earth creation view, day-age theory. And because I mentioned Answers in Genesis earlier, Reasons to Believe is the ministry founded by Hugh Ross. They got a group of scholars on their team that would be probably the leading voice in this view. And there's other views that are out there. There are Christian who would call themselves evolutionary creationists that's a view that I reject. That would be more represented by the Biologos group, who basically believe that God created, everything in the beginning and used evolutionary processes to bring about his purposes in this world. And then so they would believe that humans did evolve, and that at some point the more conservative ones would say that God picked a federal representative of humanity, Adam and Eve, and breathed his spirit on them, gave them the divine spark of life, put his image on them, impressed on them, and then they became. So that opens the possibility in their view that there was other human beings at the time, who may have been Cain's wife, et cetera. But that's not a view that we would hold, right? So we believe that Adam and Eve, I think it's important that they were a special creation of God, made from the dust of the earth, on day 6, whether or not you believe those are literal days or lengthy periods of time, and represent humanity as common ancestors, that we all came from a common ancestor of Adam and Eve. And I hope and believe that one day science will confirm that. I like that number's getting smaller and smaller in terms of like how many common ancestors human beings are believed to have. It keeps shrinking, and I think given enough time, I hope the science catches up with the Bible and says, yeah, we came from 2 people.
Yeah, it's neat when science, you see science being proven in the Bible. That's awesome. Yeah.
What else? I mean, I feel like
there's so much we could talk about.
Yeah. Have we gone into dinosaurs yet? In detail?
Well, I mean, yeah,
the hippos.
We can talk about the Job passage.
Yeah, so let's talk about Job.
Yeah, so in the old Earth view that I'm, espousing, that dinosaurs and humans didn't live together. However, in a Young Earth creation view, it is believed that there's evidence of Bibles or dinosaurs in the Bible, and a lot of people reference the behemoth in Job. You want to read a section of that?
Yeah, for sure. Chapter 41 begins by mentioning the Leviathan. And then, like, towards the end of chapter 40 is where the behemoth is specifically mentioned. Chapter 40, verse 15, "Behold, behemoth, which I made as I made you. He eats grass like an ox. Behold his strength in his loins, and his power in the muscles of his belly. He makes his tail stiff like a cedar. The sinews of his thigh are knit together. His bones are tubes of bronze, his limbs like bars of iron."
Yeah. So it sounds like a dinosaur, right? But the predominant view by scholars today is that it's actually a hippo, right?
Yeah.
Even the notes there say that.
My study Bible on that verse section says it's a hippopotamus.
Yeah. And you're saying, well, their
kind of tail. The hippopotamus got a tiny little squiggly tail, right?
It certainly doesn't look like a cedar thing, but
a sapling cedar.
Yeah, but
it's like this big, this little cedar.
my view of that if that is a hippo, and the Hebrew does allow that the word tail refers to the rear end, the rump as well, not just a literal tail. And then so if the word again allows for that, hippos have massively strong tails, rear ends, to where they, like we were talking about, how they cast fear in the continent of Africa because they're so hard to detect. They are vegetarians, as it mentions there. They're hard to detect, and you don't see them until you come up on them in your canoe or whatever. And they're known to capsize boats with their rear end, like to give you a little hip check, capsize a boat. And then in comes the Leviathan or the crocodile that some would hold to eat you up.
Yeah, my first comment to that is more snarky than educational. I love when I'm on a hike in the woods and I'm observing all of the beautiful trees in creation, and I see my cedar tree right over here, and it's just shaped like a giant hippo butt. Man. And then when I see hippos on my safari trips,
right,
man,
and you see them make
some trees right there.
Their butts get stiff.
Yeah, they come for you. That's how they get you.
I tell you what, I wouldn't want to be hip checked by no hippo.
No. Maybe that's why they call them hippos.
Yeah,
Latin's not a thing. Yeah.
We've We're devolving here.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah.
You guys keep rolling on.
Yeah. One thing, I said I would lean towards a young Earth, and they have found dinosaur bones, right, that have still had soft tissue.
Yeah,
that's
pretty fascinating. And the soft tissue is not, and I don't understand all the science behind this, but I believe for soft tissue to exist, that it can't be millions of years, but thousands.
Right.
Which was definitely an interesting find for sure. But the one, I think, Rodney, are you listening over there? We were talking about the footprint, right? So
right, the footprints.
It was
next to the
reported that
dinosaur.
there was a dinosaur footprint with a human one in it. But in conversation with you guys privately, I said that I believe that was found to be a fraud. And what I went back and looked, and it's actually believed to be another dinosaur foot because of the gait. You're familiar with gait as a runner.
Yeah.
The stride is much longer, like over a foot longer than what a normal human being stride would be. And because it would have been in like mud, that if you think about when you step in mud and you pull your foot out, you get that sucking sound, and then it fills in. So it appeared much smaller than it was, but when you actually dust away everything, it was a three-toed dinosaur footprint that had a claw on the back. That's what I've read. And of course, Rodney's like, it depends on what website you read,
Yeah.
Sure.
of like what to believe about some of this stuff. But it was interesting nonetheless. I think most young Earth creationists have backed off of that as evidence, but the soft tissue is definitely an interesting thing.
Yeah.
I was watching a paleontologist talk about it, and she had this 68 million year old bone that had the soft tissue, and she was just shocked, just red blood cells and that, but instead of questioning,
So you're
the
like,
age,
it can't be.
she doesn't question the age,
Yeah.
which I don't know, but it was we got to examine our chemical processes for the way that bones turned into fossil, and that was kind of her response.
Yeah. Yeah. So I know you question the dating systems, and that's not necessarily a bad thing to do. I think we should always think critically about everything. And this is a good reminder for us too, of like, to believe, if you believe, because the Bible says that God has revealed himself through creation, right? The heavens declare the glory of God. The skies proclaim the work of his hands. Romans 1 says God is, what is known about God has been clearly perceived through what has been made. Then you believe that God has given us two books. He's given us his special revelation here, but he's given us his general revelation in the book of nature, right?
Sure.
Now, human beings are fallible. We're definitely capable of misinterpreting the Bible, and we're definitely capable of misinterpreting science and whatever our facts are.
It's true.
But as we advance and build on the shoulders of others, we should, these two things, I hope and believe firmly, that will start lining up more and more and more and more and more. And so we can't be afraid of truth just because it comes from a non-believing source or whatever. And so it's interesting to think about like the dating stuff, because they used to try to date the Earth and the universe differently. They've backed off some of those methods. I think we were talking about one of them was like the salinity in the ocean, the salt levels. Well, they've backed off of that. And now, so generally now the scientific community would hold that the universe is about 13.8 billion years old. That's based off of the expansion of the universe, Einstein's theory of relativity that helps us understand that the universe had a beginning. So it's a good argument for the existence of God, that the creator, whatever brought this universe into existence, is outside of space-time and matter, because now we know that space-time and matter began at a certain point.
Yeah.
And the way they try to date that is cosmologists would, and you, Ross, from Reasons to Believe, is an astrophysicist, so this is like his wheelhouse. He loves talking about this stuff. But it's based on light years, right? So light year is a distance, not a time. And so how many light years away are the farthest stars that we can see? And then they backdate that. And if the laws of physics haven't changed, then the universe is about 13.8 billion years old. If they have changed, which is probably what you would say, that with the fall brought all kinds of disruption, then it had to be vastly different, because if you alter any of the fine-tuning of the universe, life can't exist on the Earth. So we believe, creationists believe, that the universe is fine-tuned for life, and there's a lot of factors that exist that have to be in place in order for this planet to be able to inhabit life in general. And so as long as the laws of physics have been constant from creation, then that would be an accurate dating model based on the most advanced telescopes and technology that we have. The Earth is different. The general consensus there is that the Earth is about 4.5 billion, and that's based off of dating rocks, radiometric dating, and based off of dating things in space, like meteors that have hit, rock from the moon, I believe, and some other, space matter that we've got our hands on. But the point is, the dating methods changed when they were proven faulty. These dating methods are still holding, and so are trusted along the scientific community. But this is what you would say, it's been wrong before. I think it can still be wrong.
Yeah,
there's a margin.
I'm not a
there's
scientist.
big margins of error too.
Yeah, none of us were
I wasn't
claiming
able to test
be
that
experts
myself.
on this. Yeah, I do appreciate you pointing at me when you were referencing Einstein. That was very kind of you. You didn't have to do that. That was good.
He got cool hair, so I figured Einstein had cool hair. There's some similarities there.
Chemistry professor vibes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm sure there's much more we haven't uncovered. What else? Anything else?
Now, I would just say, as like a general thought to everyone listening, like this, none of this is a hill to die on.
Yeah.
It's so much fun to research and study and discuss this with people. Don't let it be something that like divides you from other people and destroys relationships, especially with like other believers.
Do people do that? And that's why I like that we're able to have this conversation.
Absolutely.
This is a conversation we need to have even broader, I think, among our leadership, because we haven't really done around all that.
I feel like everyone needs to approach this with humility, because no one's certain, on a lot of this, and it's
even though some may claim they're certain.
Yeah, because I think that
everybody does, and that's the problem.
Exactly.
Right, I have facts.
Yes.
And I think we can learn a lot from one another and be able to have conversations and to just think through it. But either way, like God's creation, is so majestic. You think about whether it's what we see in front of us is just amazing, and to get caught up on age and whether it is old or appears old, and
Yeah, that's like, did God make the world to appear old? It seems pretty deceptive, and so like, these are all the things that you think about, like, and it's a good, I don't want, and I want to say this to Christian parents out there, like, I don't want Christian parents to be afraid to let their kids study dinosaurs. Like, they're fascinating creatures.
I totally forgot. Cool. I forgot to bring it. I've got this big binder of dinosaur stickers that I collected when I was younger. It is at least that thick.
Yeah.
And I don't know where it is.
Man.
It's so sick.
We would have had all the answers if you'd have brought that.
Yeah.
I know. We'll post a link to a Google Drive where I'll upload individual pictures of every sticker. You guys can flip through those at your leisure.
Yeah, examine those.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I do think that there is a fear like that, that we're afraid to talk about these things and whatnot. And I just fundamentally hold that, like, God is real, God is true, His word is true. Mm-hmm. And if He's given us the ability to read nature well, then, man, I think it'll eventually like point to Him. And I think it is. I think the fossil record's pointing to a creator, not an evolutionary process. I think that the Big Bang points to a creator, not to, everything just coming from nothing without any outside cause, something outside of space, time, and matter. So there's fascinating scientific evidence, I think, is pointing to a creator. But yet we approach these things with such fear because of, I think, lack of diligence in thinking them through and studying them well. I brought this book with me. This is actually a professor at Southeastern where I'm doing my doctorate of ministry. It's 40 questions about creation and evolution. I think it's a really good book that presents multiple views, different theories, different approaches, but with a high regard for the scriptures and a high regard for science. And so I think that's an important thing that not get lost in the shuffle of that we can study, we can, not be afraid of truth being revealed through whatever means God does that. All of it, none of it can and will compromise his ultimate authority as revealed in Scripture, Yeah. So, but if the Bible opens up those possibilities, I think we certainly should fear not. Amen.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think we're good. Any final thoughts? You want to give a dinosaur roar? You think that's what they sounded like?
Nah.
I wonder what they sounded like.
I think they were kind. I want to pet one.
See, that's where
neither say.
we're the opposite. Like, I would not want to live with dinosaurs on the earth.
Oh, I super would.
Yeah.
What I can't decide is if I would ride the Brontosaurus on his back or on his head.
Yeah.
I think you'd be. Like, what? That's a good question. Yeah. That's a good question.
Yeah.
That is.
Can you imagine like just sliding down one of those sauropods like from their head on down?
Yeah.
Rodney, you need to get us out of here, bro.
Right.
Oh man.
Yes, I think we're getting off track completely.
We'll do that in heaven.
We're still talking about dinosaurs. I don't know what you're talking about.
All right. Thank you guys for checking it out. Like, subscribe to the channel, share a comment, send a question, wc.life. Go to Coffee Time Card, submit a question. We'd love to kick it around. Let us know what you think.
Yeah.
God bless you all. Have a great day.
Peace.
Hey, wait, if you haven't done so yet, make sure you click that subscribe button so that way you know when we put out new podcast episodes. If you're watching this on YouTube, click the subscribe button, click the like button, ding that bell. That way you know when we release new videos. And leave us comments. We love comments. We love questions. If you are listening to this on Apple Podcasts, leave us a review. That way we know what improvements we may need to make, or we may just be happy to hear how well we're doing, if we are doing well. We love you all, and God bless.